The appointed time, can I just point out to councillors that we do have the team from the Office of the Auditor General waiting.
My God.
They were expecting probably to go on this morning, but I think we can get through the remaining items on the open agenda quite quickly. They're pretty straightforward, but if you can just keep in mind that we don't want to be impolite to those who have been waiting so long to give evidence to us.
Happy to move, Mr. Chair.
Oh, right. The item is item number 11. It's the recommendations from the Appointments, Performance and
So it's
Review
been moved.
Committee. It's been moved. I will second it. It is simply the, with Sally, you can come to the table in case there's questions.
I'd like to hear about the
But this is
recommendations
simply the terms of reference for the value for money study. It's quite straightforward and it's been through Appointments and Review Committee. Are there any questions? Oh, sorry, I'm going to let Desley second this because she is...
Well, I moved it. I'm quite comfortable for Desley to say.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Councillor.
It's not always a usual pairing, but I'm happy to see it when it happens. Okay, there are no questions. There are no comments. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. Carried. Were we always this efficient?
Happy to move the next item, Mr. Chair.
I think you'd better let me put it up first, Councillor.
I am settled.
It's the Quarterly Health and Safety Performance Report. Ollie, if you come to the table, I won't ask you to speak to it because I'm sure councillors have all read it. Awesome. But it has been moved again by Councillor Walker. This time I think I'll second it.
I'm happy for that, Mr.
Are there any questions arising out of the report? Yes, sorry. Question, Councillor Watson.
Thank you. Just one quick question that goes to the rolling year trend critical risks as it goes to mental health. I wonder if you could just very quickly talk me through that circle there, Ollie, as it goes to the 5% mental health risk, given that the survey in the last report, I think 2016, there was about 20% of the workforce had concerns with mental health related issues.
Yep. So in terms of what we are doing in response to that, so the circle just gives you all the information that we have received through the risk manager system on incidents that have a potential base, and the category that they have part that under as a cause is what you're seeing in the report. In terms of the response to that, obviously any of those critical risks have to have a program with them in terms of managing them proactively. From a mental health point of view, it's something that we are currently working on, developing the systems in place for managing and supporting those people. We have systems already in place in the organisation, such as EAP and all those type systems, but we're going to be moving into a more proactive sort of communication-based system from October, just to coincide with Mental Health Week.
Okay, and that follow-up survey from 2016 is due
this end of this month.
End of this month.
Yeah, we're just negotiating with Vitality Works, who are the organisation who does that. We've come out of contract with them. The first thing that will be done after that contract negotiation will be another survey. So we're aiming for end of October, definitely by the end of this year.
So that's coming back to us, or the actual survey?
The results will come back to
okay,
you guys. Yes,
thank
absolutely.
You.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hills.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you so much. And I know we've met separately on the violence and the mental health issues, but I'm not sure how much you can say in a public forum around some of the things you're seeing in the violence space, because I don't think councillors, definitely what you told me, I had no idea of the breadth of what our staff are dealing with. So maybe if possibly what you are able to share, and obviously not putting any staff members' names, what kind of things and themes are you seeing, and how bad is it?
So very generally, what we are seeing is we're seeing sort of a move to certainly a lot more verbal assaults taking place, and they tend to happen in the places that we least expect them. So we all presume that they're happening in the animal management space, obviously because you're going in and doing a regulatory enforcement role. But actually what our data is telling us is that we're seeing a lot more sort of stuff happening in the service centres, in the libraries, in the active leisure centres where people are going in. And a lot of it is based on sort of basic interaction or the enforcement of rules within those centres, where the escalation is probably quite disproportionate. We're also seeing some of the social sort of elements that have been brought into those leisure centres. So for example, families leaving children unsupervised in the care of our active leisure centres. And obviously when they are being challenged on the fact that they can't do that, there is a very aggressive response, which is obviously based from not from a mean sort of spirit point of view, but actually from a desperate sort of what else am I going to do kind of thing. So I think there's some inextricable links to that. So that's the kind of data that we are seeing. We are also seeing a few physical assaults. Again, these are more into the regulatory sort of space where we are seeing sort of those more in-your-face type sort of roles. But yeah, overall we are seeing much more of that sort of low nature verbal assault coming through. And the fact that they're being reported is just is good, because we are actually getting to quantify just how much the issue is, whereas I think in the past, before we started with the communication, there was probably a bit of a hesitance to say, this is kind of part of my job, I have to deal with this. And I think we as an organisation are definitely making it okay for people to report this, which is great for us, because we can then go in and we can tailor some of those controls. And I've already explained some of the controls that we have built in over the last couple of months, but there is some more work to be done in this area.
The other thing was, do you have anything in place? So I've had reports from me through staff and through others around the 1080 stuff, targeted, and the CATS related, and a couple of others from the Taxpayers Union, where there was targeted campaigns and email campaigns towards individual staff members?
Yes, so again, slightly different. Again, because the threat level is slightly higher, we tend to bring in sort of security at that sort of point, and we tend to do very bespoke things such as bring in enhanced security measures. In some cases, we actually go to the points of taking people off the electoral roll, for example, to protect their addresses. So we do elements of that nature. Reference the 1080, for example, we have had some directed threats at staff. We were threatened with our vehicles, for example, being tampered with. So we put in plans to remedy that. Obviously, people watching the car parks and people being briefed to check their vehicles before they go on. So we do have all those mechanisms in place. But yes, it's kind of difficult when you're dealing with it in that respect, because it's obviously coming from a very criminal point of view. The health and safety element is still paramount, it still plays into that, but it's very difficult to sort of face into that sort of criminal sort of threat behaviour.
Okay.
And my last question is, and it's probably more of a totally operational space, but because we don't do things like Christmas parties, bonuses, things like that, and you know the ratepayer doesn't expect that, but is there any ways to work in, and maybe it's an offline discussion, around actually ways to make sure our staff feel valued and feel supported when they're getting such heat on the other side? You know, and it's maybe a takeaway, just I think it's important to somehow to make sure that people are being valued, because the stretch of the other side, and in the private sector they're getting a much, you know, there's clearer ways to show people support and value that we can't show into the council. So
I think that is something I will probably have to take away and sort of work more broadly with the organisation on doing that. But we are doing quite a bit in terms of the charter work, and we're very much assuring people the fact that they are a really important part of the organisation, they should feel value and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that's a very complex one to unpack today, but we'll definitely take that back. We can deal with that as an ELT and as a PMP function.
thank you.
I was pleased the 1080 people this morning were passionate but very polite. But it didn't help later in the morning for our staff members to be called corrupt without any evidence. So that's a form of abuse as well. Councillor Linda Cooper.
Just quickly, so does the health and safety cover elected members, the 170 of us, or not?
You're in a bit of a grey space.
Yeah, I just wondered.
Yeah, you're not technically employees. However,
No, I know.
under the Act, you are covered as other people.
Yeah.
So
I
yes.
guess that's, I know that some of the emails that I saw to Councillor Hulse last week were veiled death threats. And I don't think our organisation actually looks after some of our councillors who are heading up some of these really, you know, almost dangerous projects. So it's just something I think we should be aware of. And I know that she gets a lot of moral support, but, you know, anybody could do anything when they say things like, if you touch my cat, you do anything to my cat, you will meet with the same fate. You know, that sort of stuff is, I know we're supposed to be tough old boots, etc., but actually that is quite scary. So I just want to note that it'd be good to know, and we do, Oliver looks after us on our floor and our staff, but sometimes it might need to be escalated, and it'd be good for us to know how we do that
I'll,
in terms of being safe.
Thank you. I'll take that back through Marguerite, and we can start a piece of work around that, definitely looking at that sort of area.
And we're not asking for special attention because we know we're not employees, we don't have any conditions, but yeah, I think it's critical. If we want other people to be taking on these roles, we want to know that they're safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there are no further comments, I will put the recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. Carried.